And then he listed which dates. I told him, I said, we're gonna teach them all over again for anyone that needs them, so that everyone has the opportunity to get compliant. If they take advantage of it, they'll be compliant and they'll be able to continue with us. If they don't, then they'll have to get it somewhere else. Because we're not gonna teach the class 3 and 4 times, we'll teach it twice, just to get everybody, it's like a one-shot deal, get everybody up to speed. So he scheduled most of this time in his own time off to teach it, and most of the members came in for the same way, just to get the classes under their belt and to get that sheet as green as you see it now. Like I said, it wasn't that way at the beginning. If you're interested, the page before that is just a job description of the compliance supervisor. You can read that at your leisure later. But the whole goal was to get this chart green, and we were able to accomplish that. Enough so that when Phil Bonaiuto came out from OEMS on Tuesday of this past week, a week ago today, he was impressed, and he said, I can't believe you got as much done as you did. He says, well, you know, you light a fire, we're gonna put it out. So he went through and he made a list of a few items that he wanted to see addressed. One was, what's one example? He said, you don't have anything in your policies stating that you need 2 technicians. And I said, isn't that the state law? And he goes, well, yeah, but you should have it in your policies. I said, okay, so how can you know that? You know, why would I put something in my policies and procedures that says it takes 2 guys to go in the ambulance, 2 EMTs to go in the ambulance, when you can't run an ambulance service without 2 guys in it? But that's a typical, like you say, bureaucratic notion. So we said, okay, thank you, we'll take care of that. So another one was the medical control physician, the affiliate hospital medical director. They wanted to have a clause in their contract with us that stated how we were going to handle high acuity calls. Like if someone's having a cardiac arrest, they want us to call for another medic, even if we're at the medic level, because we're going to be running paramedic basic staffing. And if it's a high acuity call, they want us to make the phone call to get another paramedic coming. Whether or not we intercept with them or not, it's another issue, but the lay of the land is pretty much that you always call for a second medic. So I've got a word out to Dr. Ray at Hayward Hospital. She's agreed to do it as an addendum. She said, oh yeah, we just had to do that for Woods. I said, okay, good, thank you. So apparently that's one of their hot buttons this time. And those are the things by T's and I's. I mean, and he said that the 3-year plan, which is if you go to the next page, after the green sheet, the 3-year plan, he said, is pretty good the way you have it, but you should probably get another letter of commitment from the board showing that they have their ducks in a row, so to speak, that you guys have the level of commitment that, you know, would support going to ALS and any potentials. The 3-year plan, as it's laid out now, it would be day shift, which would be me during the week, and we'd have a per diem medic on the weekends for Saturday or Sunday. We already pay 2 EMTs to do that. We pay them enough that we can get a paramedic, I believe, in to cover one of those positions. It had been the plan from the start that one of those positions would be a paramedic when we went to ALS. So that'll give us the 7 days that they require for the first shift. The second year would require the second shift, and that would be, again, we have an EMT already that we pay as an OCO, on-call officer, as they're all EMTs, and we fund it with an on-call calendar sign-up where they come in and put in 6 hours to 12 hours a week individually, and that'll be like a full-time equivalent basis. So we've got 1 or 2 EMTs available as it is at the basic level. We'd have to swap out 1 for a paramedic, and we're still planning on doing the on-call positions. We may end up funding part of that as a stipended position. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but I put in here full-time equivalent, because we need to cover those hours for a second shift. And then the 3rd year, he didn't like my first pass on it because it was meant to be a little bit vague. I said, because well, I think as we're making more money and we're going to do it, we're going to need the staffing. I said, but I'm thinking that we're going to do an on-call position, and then because you don't have to actually have them in the station for that position, they have to be available and sign up that you can guarantee that they're coming. If they're not, then you have to have a contract with like an outlying ambulance service like a Woods or MedStar. We already have those in place as it is, so I don't see any issues going on the 3rd year. So the next page It's just a copy of the letter that was pretty much the same verbiage as we've used the last 2 times from the town. I really didn't change much of anything except to put your names at the bottom. There's a spot to sign off on it. This is the one that you signed the last time, and Jeff Bennett signed prior to that, and when he was on the board. So I would humbly ask it if you were willing to maybe just sign off on this, so I can take one of the copies with me to supply to the OEMS folks, and just showing your commitment on that. And that's pretty much the EMS side of the house. As far as the fire side of the house, we've got a new fire engine that we got completely on donations, thanks to Seaman Paper and some of his cohorts in the Gardner area, and some of the other businesses in town got together and bought us a fire engine. And then we put it in service, we retrofitted it so that it worked for us. A new fire engine's probably $400,000 to $500,000. A used fire engine of this age, we got a pretty good deal, I think, at just under $70,000, and then we put our own retrofitting work into it. The on-call day shift, or the day shift, Dennis was the main person behind most of the work to it. And we've got it fitted now with a generator, lights, hoses, and it does pretty much everything that a rescue pumper will do. It's not missing much. We don't have a big deck on yet. We don't have a raising light yet. But, short of spending a few $1,000s, we have what we need. My feeling has been pretty stingy on spending the money, because we've had to hold back on our 5-year SCBA replacement plan after you'd suggested an impact letter be written in the past when we were having the last 5% cut. And you'd asked for an impact statement. I wrote up an impact statement that said basically that we're putting the SCBA bottle replacement at risk, and ladder testing and hose testing at risk. And we haven't spent the money on ladder testing, hose testing, or SCBA's. And now we've got 4 years left instead of 5 years till they're all out of date. They have a 15-year shelf life with a 5-year checkup, so to speak. And at 15 years, they've got the carbon fiber bottles have to be taken out of service. They won't be compliant. So I would suggest respectfully that we think seriously in the near future about at least a 4-year replacement on the 54 bottles that we need. We don't have to buy them all at once. We can buy some every year. We talked with capital planning briefly about it, but then when we got cut, we didn't go any further with it. So that's pretty much it on the fire side of the house. The engine's a big plus. We bought the ambulance with the proceeds from the ambulance. We've got another ambulance that's pretty much at close to age now. I don't want to do anything with it right now, as long as I can hold off, because we're going to need to generate some revenue before we're going to be ready to buy that on the lease purchase. The engine was a really big plus. We should actually be putting in for another engine, but it's tough when you don't have it. You don't have it, you can't spend it. So that's pretty much what I have. Any other questions, or anything I can respond back to?
I think I've seen before about the SBCA bottles, and I think that this town really puts police and fire and safety as a priority, and I think that we need to do that too. And you're to come with what kind of budget did you call that?
For an add-on
Initially?
budget?
Current services budget.
Okay, we need to really look at being able to do that and not skimp on some of those things. If we are saying that we are going to support ALS, then we need to support all of it. And making sure that we are, you probably can't have another new ambulance, but it's just a matter of really looking at, shelf life that's from working with CERT, I understand that. And would never want to have you be on a call and, oh, I'm sorry, well, the town couldn't do that. So we think that we should see, again, we look at your current budget, and I think it's important that we see, what else you would ask for and why. We did another full-time equivalent, and that was really important. And I just, like I said, going forward, I don't think that we should let those things go. They're life and safety preservation. That's really important.
When I first came on, I was told by my subordinates that the town voted for 4 full-timers, which I thought was appropriate, and then they didn't fund it. I said, so they told you no? And he said, no, they told us yes, they gave us the 4, but then they didn't fund it. And he says, right, so they told you no. So he got it right after that, and so we went for 2. We needed 4, but we went for 2. So we worked up from that point for an additional one. But I'm probably the best around that I can think of for spreading that out. The full-time equivalent program has been a rousing success. That program has allowed us to, well, I should probably explain how that works for us. The full-time equivalent program is such that we spread it out amongst the weekend FTEs, 2 shifts, 9 hours each day, which gives us 36 hours total in the weekends. We have a 50-hour position, a 48-hour position during the week full-time, and any overtime he picks up or any additional hours we need for like a compliance supervisor or the EMS coordinator or other hours that we fund out of that FTE program as well as if we have the fire, with a fire in town, the fire is generated out of the fire revenues, which have dropped from 80,000 to 50,000. So the wages on those are considerably cut from where they were. And additional wages are paid for the ambulance out of the ambulance service and not impacting taxes. And that's $30 per call or $40 per call. $30 per call for an EMT that donates for their own good of the community 6 hours of their life for free at night, once a week, and that's what we ask of them. And for that, they're eligible to sign up for the FTE shifts on the weekend. It pays $19 an hour for 9 hours a day. They get $171 for a good little part-time job, and it staffs the ambulance on the weekend. The $40 an hour is if they give 12 hours of their life for free a week, and if they do that for the month, then they get $40 for each call they go on. In other words, it doesn't really cost us terribly for the extra $10 because it's only paid out of the ambulance calls they go on, so we're generating that revenue. It actually works out that I think if we didn't cover the ambulance and we gave the call to Woods, we'd lose money because we'd still send staff out to stabilize the patient and then give the ambulance transport to like a Woods or MedStar. So we'd end up losing money versus if we can staff the ambulance with 2 basics, then we make money. So it's just basic economics the way I look at it. That program has worked out exceptionally well. We have an on-call officer every night of the week from 6P to 6A, and all the officers, they don't get anywhere near what it's worth to do it. They get a stipend for the year, which is from $750 to around $1,500 unless they're above that at the deputy level. And for that, they're an on-call officer for the town. They're representing the needs of the department on the off hours, at nights, weekends, holidays, and no special bonus other than when we couldn't cover it as well because everyone was getting pretty well burnt out. Because Templeton used to be a sleepy little village. It isn't anymore. We're 8,000 residents generating 1,000 calls a year for service. 70% of those, or roughly 700, are ambulance calls. So the math is pretty simple. We're a very busy service. About 60% of those, or roughly a little over 400 calls, are ALS. Now, if you factor in about $500, maybe a call more, as much as $500 more, we'll generate between $100,000 and $200,000 in the first year, in rough estimates, just from statistically. And that makes it a good deal for the town. It makes it a good deal for us because for that revenue that we're generating, we still have needs. We're still operating less than where we need to be. And my personal philosophy has always been that if we can do less on the taxpayer's back and more on our own back, that's a good thing. So the last FTE position that we just picked up was going to be split between taxation half and coming from ambulance receipts reserved for half of it. And then at the last minute, we didn't have it in the taxation side of it. So I was asked, can you handle it all under the ambulance service? And I said, yes. And what it means to me is that if we can't, then we're going to not have as many hours available for people. It's just economics again. If we're at ALS and we're generating more revenue and we have it in the coffers to start, then okay. If it's not there, then it isn't. So, sorry, go Go ahead.
Just a comment. At budget time last spring, the chief made the case that he's going to need additional revenue for the transition to ALS, and suggested that they were earning additional revenue in the receipts reserved account, and that we should increase the draw from that account. In the past, we drew $160,000 from that account. Then it went to $180. This year it's $244. So the chief has an additional $64,000 from that account to help in that transition. Even with the reductions that we've made, we're a little too generous, and he ends up with about $27,000 to $28,000 more out of the general fund for his operations this year, and the total was about $91,000 in new dollars in fiscal 16. I'm sure if he puts down as a new initiative capital needs there, actually we won't classify those as capital. We should be buying those devices every year or renewing some every year. So that would be a new initiative that would be funded in the operating budget, assuming we have the resources. So
We get more bang for the buck than I think anybody else, and frankly, and we're proud of that. But it still says that we still need it. We don't really have much choice without it. Any other questions for me?
No questions, but just a comment. You've done a great job. Congratulations on making ALS.
Thank you very much. It's been a long road. It's
Yep,
glad
working
to see
towards
it
it.
now.
Did good.
I'd like to echo what Doug said. I think the work you've done is impressive, and hopefully we'll get this ALS thing on board and going.
He mentioned $160,000. When I first came here, the budget at the time for the fire ambulance was $175,000, and Will Spring said to me from the advisory board, well, how much do you think you're gonna make this year? And I told him 180. And I was expecting probably closer to 185, but I told him 180, so I don't think you're gonna do that, because it hadn't been done before. And we got to 100, and he said, well, we're gonna give you 160, we'll take 20,000 out of taxation. I said, okay, it doesn't hurt me at all. So the following year, we made 185 that year. The following year, we made 242,000. The year after that, we had a lot of lift assists. We still have a lot of lift assists over in your neighborhood. And we don't do any transports. So without the transport, we're spending money, but we're not generating revenue to the tune of almost 50 times that we've gone to some of the residences. And there's not really much we can do about it. It's the community and we're the fire department, so it's okay. But it dropped our revenue down from where I targeted 250,000 for this year. We only made 247,000. So it's still pretty close, but I think the changes that we made in staffing by utilizing the FTE program, the changes that we've made in staffing by having people assign certain things and putting it all on the calendar has really paid off.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
May I say, you're very quiet. I think you've only awakened me once this year.
Oh,
When I
we'll
would
blow
ring
the
out-
sirens next time if you want.
Oh, please.
All right. We have election warrant.
I just wanted to have you guys vote on this early so we can have it served early and be ahead of the game. We already voted on the articles, I just
Okay.
wanted you to vote on the final.
We just have to sign it?
Yeah,
All right.
make sure it looks okay.
All right. Well, if anybody has any questions on it, we'll entertain
8th
them.
day of December.
What's that?
The 8th day of December.
Yes. All right, the topic's not reasonably anticipated. Why is that on there?
Remember I added that last time? We had it in our selectmen's policies. So I just added it on there if you guys want to have it, if you need to bring stuff up. If you don't want it on there, I'll take it off. It's up to you.
Well, my only concern is that,
You don't have to put like
Oh, you don't?
2.5
Thank you very
numbers in
much.
parentheses.
Thank you.
Okay, just curious.
if an item is not on the agenda, and it's really not an emergency, we should have discussion, but we should not vote until the next meeting.
I'll
Okay?
take it off.
Yeah, I don't see why there's anything we need to do. So then we'll go to Selectmen's comments. Was that your comment, Diane?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. I don't really have anything.
All right. Doug?
Thank you.
I do have a future agenda item that I'd like to get put on. When we go to town meeting, like last night, it was, in my opinion, our presentation was completely unprofessional. We had no idea who was gonna read what article. We're standing there, or sitting there. Oh, you gotta read that one? Nope, you gotta read that one. There was no coherence. We started in the middle, went this way, back to the middle, went this way. So we need an agenda item, in my opinion, to figure out how are we gonna present a professional image at town meeting. I think the articles or the motions, we should have an individual page for each one so that we can read it. The print is big, it's easy to read, not this little teeny tiny print. Then that single piece of paper could be given to the moderator, instead of now where we have to, look at it, read the little bitty thing, tear that in half.
Oh my God, I ripped
give them that
apart
half
7
torn piece of
warrants.
paper. We're not presenting a very good image, and I think we need to get that on the agenda, come up with how are we going to present ourselves at town meeting. And I don't really have any other comments.
Julie?
Well stated. I'm behind you on that one. I was a bit confused. No, other than wishing all our vets tomorrow, obviously, a wonderful Veterans Day, and hope that everybody takes time to appreciate our vets.
At our last meeting, the was not recorded, so I would like to repeat what we said at the last meeting and thank the Historical Society for the Halloween celebration, which, from what I've been hearing, is a real positive, that a lot of people enjoyed being there, and we had a great turnout. And also, I think last night, I said to the reporter last night, I never thought I'd see the day when you'd have two projects like a school and the police station both pass on the same night. And I really want to thank the citizens and people who participated in realizing that those needs are genuine and they need to be addressed. So, other than that, do we need an executive session? No. All right.
You wanted that one, this one, and Julie.
I did, yeah. I just had one issue to bring up in executive session tonight. That's why it was put on the agenda. But we can move it to the next meeting if we need to.
I would rather put it off if it's okay.
Sure.
All right. All right. Seeing there's no other business, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Diane?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. The meeting is adjourned.